Sarah. So good afternoon, everybody. As Sarah already said before, my name is Luisa Rizzo. I'm a contracts officer located in the Italian establishment of ESA in Esdrin. And today I will try to guide you through the preparation of a proposal to be submitted under an ESA ITT. We try to collect all the most questioned points and issues, and we are trying to give you a practical overview of the proposal preparation. I will now share my screen to show you the PowerPoint presentation we provided to you that will be available also online. I hope you can see my screen. Sarah, would you please confirm you can see it correctly?
In fact, no.
Not yet?
Not yet.
Okay, that should work now.
We see, but not in full screen, and now it's full screen. Perfect.
Okay, perfect, we made it. So, as we said, welcome to introduction of ESA Star Procurement. What I would like to clarify first is that this presentation is, of course, tailored on the climate space element peculiarities. So some of the elements and the information that you will find into this slide presentation is not applicable to all ESA ITTs, but we will go through it and I will tell you when we are addressing something that is specific to this program. Okay, moving to the very first slide. As you can see, that's the agenda of the presentation. We will start addressing the eligibility criterion to make you understand who can actually bid to an ESA climate space ITT. Then we will go through the registration on ESA Star and the access to the ITT package. And then we will go through the TA package, so the ITT documentation, the so-called letter invitation or cover letter, the famous PSS forms. We will go through some of the most commonly mistakes we collect on the PSS forms. Then we will have a look at the draft contracts and to some questions related to the ITT. As Sarah already said, at the end, we will have a Q&A section. So if you could write down your questions, that would be easier for us, also considering the short timing of this presentation. The webinar, as we already said, will be recorded and made available online. And as we already said, this webinar will not discuss the content pertaining to any initiated ITTs. Okay, let's start with the eligibility criteria. As I said, this presentation is focused on the climate space element. The climate space element of the European FPORT program is one of the optional programs, as part of the optional, so-called optional programs of ESA. This means that these programs are not mandatory. So only some of the ESA member states, so the member states participate to these programs, and that's the reason why we have some eligibility criterion tailored on this specific program. As you can see, and this is a standard sentence, and you will find it in all climate space ITTs, the procurement actions issued within this program is open to companies and organizations having the registered office. And when we talk about office, we refer to the official registered seat in those ESA member states that have subscribed to the climate space element. You can find here the list. So Austria, Belgium, Czech Republic, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, United Kingdom, and Canada. As you can see also from the presentation, that requirements above for bidding consortia shall not be waived at any conditions. And I repeat the message, being an optional program, unfortunately, we are not allowed to evaluate and to admit to evaluation any proposal coming from a consortium that has some companies or entities not from one of those countries listed in this slide. However, since we in ESA is always looking for and seeking for diversity and etc., we may exceptionally accept a small percentage, a small share of the prize outside being spent outside the climate space member state or participating states, apologies, only if this contribution can be registered as external services. So formally speaking, we cannot accept any subcontractor in the consortia that is from one from country that is not part of the climate space program. But if the activity or the actions that can be performed by this entity can be defined as external services, we may accept exceptionally a 10% of labor cost to be spent, as I said, outside the participating states of this specific program. In this case, so if a consortium intends to ask for an external service outside the climate space countries, participating states, they have to provide a detailed justification for this choice. So in the proposal, if that's the intention of one of the consortia, ESA expects the bidder to provide a detailed explanation on the reason and the rationale behind these external services to be provided and why we shall accept an external service provider that is outside the climate space participating states. And we also need, if the price, the overall price of the external service is above 5,000 euros, or 5K, we expect also the consortium to provide a set of PSS forms. I know it's quite complex, but that's the only exemption we managed to have approved by the management within the optional programs. Moving to the second slide, this is more focused on the registration on ESA Star and the access to the ITT package. Of course, if you want to bid for an ESA ITT, you must be registered as ESA tender via ESA Star registration website. In the you will find the link to access the ESA Star registration right in the slides. The registration as an ESA entity includes the obligation also to fill in the agency questionnaire and to update the questionnaire every year. This is something that unfortunately it's not commonly done by bidders, but the ESA systems requires an update, yearly update of the information. The update of the information is essential after the recommendation of a proposal, because we cannot finalize a contract, we cannot finalize the implementation of the contract if the bidder is not fully registered. When we say fully registration or fully registered, I'm mentioning the wording of ESA Star registration. If you manage to access the ESA Star registration and check the bidder dedicated area, if the questionnaire is fully completed, if the registration is full valid, you will see a green thing close to the name of the bidders. Otherwise, you may contact or the contracts officer or the ESA service desk to have some kind of support in the registration. However, if you have any issue in the registration or in the update of the questionnaire, please make sure you double check and cross check this information in advance, way in advance, the closing date of an ITT. Because unfortunately, as a contracts officer, I can support you in the finalization of the registration or in the update of the questionnaire only if you contact me at least a week in advance, so a week before the closing date of a certain ITT. Otherwise, we may have some problems because in the according to the TA package and the information duly published on ESA Star, we cannot help you in the very last day. So if your request is done in the last 24 hours before or prior the ITT closure, we cannot help you in any case. So it's better when you start, drafting the proposal and etc. also to verify the status of registration on ESA Star. That's an internal suggestion, but trust me, this will save you a lot of problems, especially if the proposal is recommended. Moving to the second slide on the registration on ESA Star. Again, this is an information for you. Bidders shall know that any failures to provide or update the required information will result in the access to the non-public part of ESA Star being blocked. So it's not because we want to have everything updated and etc. But unfortunately, the system itself will not allow you to access certain sections of ESA Star. So this part, despite being quite formal and preliminary to the, of course, drafting of proposal and etc., is very, very important for a successful and fast conclusion of an ESA process. For all information on registration process and also point of contacts within ESA, you may click to this link again into the slide, and you will find a detailed explanation of the process and all the points to be focused on when it comes to the registration. And as I already said before, only a full registration allows the contract to be placed with the selected tenders. Otherwise, we might have to wait for the questionnaire to be updated. It may take weeks or months in certain exceptional cases, but of course, you may imagine how this could affect an efficient conclusion and finalization of a contract. Talking about contract now, we will see what an ITT package is actually. We often refer to a TA package or ITT's package. When ESA publishes an ITT, the publication itself contains a set of documentation that provides the bidders with all the requested information, both on the technical and administrative and contractual sides. You may have already noticed that the ITT, the ESA ITTs may be, and procurements in general, may be issued following two alternative types of procurement procedures. The first one, the standard procurement action, is used for all ESA procurement actions in a competitive tender. That's the standard process for all competitive tendering, whilst the Expro Plus, so the so-called express procurement, is a contracting tool for low, medium budget procurement actions that, of course, optimizes the speed of an ITT and, of course, the time to contracts. Of course, Expro tends to streamline the regulatory framework for certain and targeted procurement types without compromising, of course, the technical, legal, and procedural sides of the tenders and of the procurement actions themselves. As I said, the standard procurement action, as you could see, is smaller than the Expro. The main difference between the two procurement actions is the so-called proposal template, which is included in the Expro Plus ITTs. And that's the proposal template where ESA already provide bidders with the draft cover letter and a detailed proposal. On this regard, before moving to the specific sections documents of the ITT package, I would like to clarify one thing regarding the proposal template. I know that the template we provide may be quite simple, may look quite simple or not well detailed, but if you want a suggestion, please try as much as possible to use the template that ESA provides in the ITT package. I know that some of the some entities have their own templates, which is perfectly fine. Of course, we will not downgrade any proposal for not being equal to the proposal template we published, but for a matter of completeness and I would strongly suggest, if you use a template which is not one of the published by ESA, to follow the order of the ESA proposal template, because sometimes it could happen that using different templates may delete or cause the absence of some sections that are actually essential for our evaluation. So it's always better to double check against the proposal template if you're not using the ESA template, of course. So starting with the letter of invitation, so the so-called cover letter. The cover letter, of course, contains the formal part of the ITTs. If the statement of work contains the project explanation and the expectation under a technical point of view of ESA, the cover letter contains all the formalities. The first one, we already addressed it, is the eligibility. So any invitation to tender issued in this case within the climate space element of the European Earthwatch program shall be addressed to economic operators having the registered office in one of the participating states, with, as we already said, the exemption of a maximum of 10% of the overall price for external services outside the participating states. With regard to the eligibility, I must say that we receive a lot of requests and questions on the evaluation criteria. We try to be as clear as possible, but of course we cannot waive, as already said, we cannot waive this provision. So the only exemption which is authorized and admitted, which will not lead to the exclusion of the proposal, because you can submit a proposal which doesn't meet the eligibility requirement, but of course it will not be recommended for sure by ESA, because at the evaluation stage we must exclude the proposal that are not compliant with the provision contained and listed in the letter of invitation. So please make sure that you're meeting the eligibility requirements before submitting a proposal. Moving to the second point, the price. Bidders are invited to submit proposal within the maximum budget defined in the letter of invitation. You may go lower, so you may propose a lower budget, but of course you cannot go beyond the maximum budget already set in the letter of invitation. The agency shall take tenders into consideration only if the total price, which could be depending on the price of the contract and FFP, so a firm fixed price, a price which is defined since day one of the contract and that cannot be amended except for some exemptions, or a ceiling price to be converted into an FFP in case, for instance, of a phased contract, depending indeed on the single ITT, remains within this limit. So please again make sure that your proposal is compliant both with the maximum budget defined in the cover letter and with the price type set in the cover letter. In the same section regarding the budget, you will find both information, so the maximum ceiling for the price and the price type. Again, if a proposal doesn't meet this requirement again, this of course will cause a downgrade of the proposal at the evaluation stage. So please make sure you're compliant to this requirement as well. In the letter of invitation in the cover letter, you will also find a declaration of compliance and the so-called key acceptance factors. These two elements, which are not anymore listed in the letter of invitation, but are mentioned in the letter of invitation, because you will be required to submit this information via ESA Star. On ESA Star tendering, indeed, bidders are required to declare the tender's compliance with the ESA requirements, so the so-called declaration of compliance, and the tender's fulfillment of each of the key acceptance factors. As I said, should bidders fail in any of the above declaration, the tender will not be accepted to evaluation. The key acceptance factors, or the so-called CAF, are very important to ESA, because when we open the proposal at the so-called tender opening board, we need to make sure that each proposal meets the CAF. If we see a discrepancy between the proposal and one of the key acceptance factors, which commonly are compliance with price type, so we are back to the price point, or compliance with the maximum budget, as already said before. So if a proposal doesn't meet any or one of the key acceptance factors, will not be admitted to evaluation. So the proposal will stop at the opening of the proposal itself, and you will receive, of course, a regret letter containing this information. So please make sure you fill in all the sections on ESA Star tendering, so both the declaration of compliance and the key acceptance factors. These are pure formalities, but as I said, any breach of these formalities may lead to the exclusion of the proposal from being evaluated. Okay, continuing the assessment of the ITT package, I wanted to focus, instead of focusing on the whole proposal template, I wanted to focus on maybe one of the most hated sections of ESA proposal templates, the PSS forms. So we're now approaching to the financial part of a proposal to be submitted, of course, under an ESA ITT. So notwithstanding the requirements set in each ITT, of course, because each ITT may tailor the request on PSS forms depending on the peculiarities or the price types and etc. applicable to the ITT. So in general, it could be, you could find different requests regarding the PSS forms in different ITTs. Bidder shall provide a minimum set of PSS forms containing. So that's what you see here. These three listed are the minimum set of PSS forms. And these are usually the PSS forms we request on the climate space ITTs. The PSS A2, so the breakdown of, containing the breakdown of total price per participating company or institute, of course, including the exhibits A and B form, if applicable. We will go through them afterwards, but for your information, the exhibit A contains the specific breakdown of all the so-called other direct costs, external services, travel costs, and etc. Whilst the exhibit B contains, with specific regard to the travel cost, contains the specific information for the travel cost claimed in the PSS A2 accordingly. The second PSS requested is the PSS A8, referring to the company manpower and price summary per work package, using, of course, the same identifiers and code as in the proposed WBS and WPD. So please make sure there is consistency between the WPD and the information in the PSS A8 and the PSS A15. Which is the one containing the estimated expenditure and payments by the company versus time. These three documents must be submitted if so requested by the ITT for each entity of the consortium and for the consortium as a whole. It's not mandatory, so the mandatory request is the submission of the PSS form for each of the entity composing the consortium. In addition to that, it is highly appreciated the submission of the PSS forms for the consortium as a whole. These PSS forms are available to public with the instructions included, so please make sure you click on this link. On ESA Star publication, you will find the list of all the applicable and existing PSS forms requested by ESA, with a detailed explanation of each line to be filled in. So again, I strongly suggest you to click on this link and to go through all the information, because it could be very, very useful. Moving to the notes, again, this is very, very, very important, because it can be a reason of downgrading a proposal. PSS form shall not be submitted in Word format or, sorry, in Excel format as well. We shall not accept any of this documentation. All the documents that are part of a full proposal, PSS forms include, must be in a signed PDF format, and shall be, of course, integrated with regard to the climate space ITTs in the financial part of the proposal. More into details, and again, that was already requested by a lot of tenders, one single file is usually expected for the financial proposal, which shall include also all the PSS forms, and of course in a readable, recognizable format, because sometimes the scan copies we receive of the PSS forms cannot be read in any way. So please make sure that the PSS forms are fully readable. And I'm saying this in your, of course, interest, because if we cannot access the information, it is very hard to evaluate and to properly assess a proposal. So as I said, the PSS form should be included in the financial proposal, but if you manage, if for instance the consortium is very, very big, there are a lot of subcontractors and of course consequently a lot of PSS forms, you may also attach them as a separate zip file under the other document section on ESA Star. So do not worry if you prefer to separate them and to create a dedicated folder, that is perfectly fine. The suggestion I give you is to mention it into the proposal. So in the financial proposal, if you don't attach the PSS forms right below the end of the financial proposal as an annex or appendix or whatever it is, please make sure you inform ESA of this attachment. What usually makes confusions among bidders is the lack of clarity in the proposals. And I'm telling you, because I mean, on a monthly basis, I evaluate a lot of proposals. Please make sure that the proposals are self-standing. We shall not consider, we shall not take any of the information for granted in the proposal. We must assess the proposal that is presented to us via ESA Star. So please make sure that everything is clear, everything is well presented and justified, because otherwise, and this is quite common in the debriefing that we might have with the not selected tenders, that actually the bidders understand that some information were hidden or again taken for granted. This is something that we cannot do when evaluating the proposal. So please make sure that everything is clear and everything is well presented, and especially under the with regard the specific regard to the financial part with regard to the PSS forms. Now we are going into details of each PSS form. We are going through basically the most common ones, the A2 and the A8. Starting with the very first one. So the form PSS A2 is to be completed by the tender and each of its subcontractors, regardless of the type of price under which the tender is submitted. Indeed, in the PSS forms, you will be required to provide a lot of information and a lot, sorry, of information and elements. So please make sure that all the sections and the lines are filled in. The agency, of course, reserves the right to audit the tender's data on which the price is calculated in accordance, of course, with the provision of the general clauses and conditions for all ESA contracts. Where applicable, and please make sure you focus on this section, the exchange rates for conversion of national currency to euro shall be clearly declared into the PSS forms and into the proposal. Whilst the proposal template does not contain a specific section for the exchange rates, if applicable, of course, the PSS forms do. So please make sure that the exchange rates are well presented and indicated into the PSS A2 and also in the other forms. On this regard, so with regard to the exchange rates, because this is a never-ending discussion with companies, the proposed exchange rates will be evaluated against ESA accepted rates, of course, and the ECB spot, so the European Central Bank spot rates. So considering that, of course, the proposals are usually evaluated after a couple of weeks from the submissions and etc., please make sure you also mention the timing where the exchange rates proposed by the bidder is taken. Because of course, you know that this may, due to the fluctuation and etc., they can be different also from one month to another. So it's better, again, to provide as many information as possible. Another information which is mandatory required to be included in the PSS forms is the economic conditions. So the reference period of the and cost validity. The economic conditions shall be duly included in the PSS forms for all, both prime and subcontractors. And of course, in its definition, the bidder shall take into consideration the overall project duration. So for instance, let me make an example. If you are bidding for one contract, of course, the economic condition will be defined to will be limited to the current year or the expected year of the kickoff of the activity. Whilst if you are bidding for 4-year contracts, in that case, the economic conditions shall be extended to include the whole duration of the contract. It could be quite complex as it is presented right now, but actually it is quite easy, and especially this section is very well presented also into the instructions to the PSS forms link that I showed you before on ESA Star registration. The PSS A2, as I already said, is made of basically 3 documents, the proper PSS A2 and the so-called exhibit. We have the exhibit A to the PSS A2 shall be completed for all cost contributors of items 3.1 and on. As I said before, the other direct cost section of the PSS A2, we will see it in the next slide. Whilst the exhibit B to PSS A2 should be completed for all the cost contributors of item 3.9, the travel cost. That's a frame of the other direct cost elements. So that's the PSS A2, not the exhibit. I wanted to show you the other direct cost element section because this is the most, and that's the most complex, and on the other side, this is the section that confuses the companies the most. Usually, sorry. So usually in the climate space, ITTs, the companies do not ask for any electrical or electronic components or hardware parts and etc. usually, and I'm saying usually because of course it's not mandatory and etc., but it's commonly seen the climate space ITTs, external services, travel, and miscellaneous costs being claimed by the bidders. These lines, these costs, and these voices must be reflected into the Exhibit A. The Exhibit A actually is quite, in the structure itself, it is quite simple. You have few columns where you ask to, first of all, define and clarify which line you are providing the details, because the Exhibit A is simply a more specific and detailed breakdown of this section of the PSS A2. So in the very first section of the exhibit, you will be asked to mention the line, the corresponding line of the PSS A2, and to provide all the information of the other direct costs claimed. If a bidder claims for external services, please make sure that you provide not only the description of the service, but also, and this is essential because it's one of the most common negotiation points we raise, also please make sure that you mention also the provider of the above mentioned external service. And when I say please mention the service provider, I ask you to provide the name of the provider, and that's the most important information, the country where the registered seat of the provider itself is registered. Because we need to make sure that the geographical return is well balanced. So these are the information that we must see in the Exhibit A with regard to the external services. And the same goes for the line 3.10, the so-called miscellaneous cost. The fact that we allow bidders to claim miscellaneous costs doesn't mean that we don't ask for details of this cost. So please make sure you list and you make a clear explanation of what's in this cost. I mean, what you're going to buy and obtain from this line cost. So the more information you provide, the clear evaluation will be done by ESA. The line 3.9, as I said before, instead is applicable to the Exhibit B, the second exhibit to the PSS A2. And in the Exhibit B, you will be required to provide, again, all the information connected to the travel cost you already claimed in the PSS A2, which are also mentioned in the PSS A8 as well. And with regard to the travel, I need to stress out that, formally speaking, when you ask for a travel cost, you must provide both departure and destination places. Most of the times, the destination and their departures, but of course, most of the times is the destinations are not presented or are very, very, very vague. This can be, in certain cases, this can be acceptable because, for instance, a certain conference is not scheduled yet, and so on. So we may have several reasons justifying the lack of information and the lack of details in the Exhibit B. But again, we need to be informed about the reasons why you're not providing such details. Because of course we are not required to evaluate a proposal to go and have a look and check all the schedules, all the conference date, workshop, and so on. So please make sure, if you don't have a destination yet, or if other information is missing, please make sure you provide a detailed justification of why these elements are not present in the Exhibit B. Otherwise, on the other side, if you lack on details, we will downgrade the proposal, because you may imagine we cannot accept any cost that is not well presented, and a travel cost with no destination is not well presented. As I said, it can be justified, a lack of destination can be justified, can be accepted by ESA, but it must be justified. So please make sure you spend a little bit of your time to the PSS form, especially to the A2 and the exhibits, especially because these three documents really give us a clear overview of the full proposed project. Moving to the PSS A8, the same for the previous one. These PSS forms shall be completed by the tender and each of its subcontractors, regardless of the type of price under which the tender is submitted. The purpose of the PSS A8 actually is to obtain the contractor's price calculation as per the PSS A2, so they are all connected, for each work package at the WBS level required as specified in the ITT. So the PSS forms, we can say it's contains a big frame of the whole project because it has to reflect all the information already provided in the PSS A2 against the WBS provided in the full proposal as well. This is maybe, perhaps, I believe this is the most complex of the PSS forms, but again, it is very, very useful for ESA to understand the whole cost and the whole price claim for the project. And again, against the PSS, and thanks to the PSS A8, ESA makes one of the basic and basilar calculation and assessment of the proposal. Here we have an example. ESA refers to PSS A8 indeed for the calculation and assessment of each work package allocation of effort, for instance, the work package of management. So bidders are strongly invited to verify the consistency of the information given in PSS A8 with the full proposal. On this regard, let me clarify one thing and draw your attention to this point. Most of the times, especially, and of course I'm talking during this presentation under a contracts officer point of view, the PSS A8 is also very useful for us to evaluate and assess the overall allocation of effort for the work package dedicated to management. And most of the times there are a lot of discrepancies between the information provided in the PSS A8 and in the full proposal, more into details, into the key personnel overall allocation, the key personnel table, so in the table containing the overall allocation of effort for each of the proposed key personnel. Please make sure that the whole calculation given in the PSS A8 also reflects the data and information set in the key personnel table, because most of the times there is a discrepancy, and based on ESA rules and etc., we must address this point and get back to you with a negotiation point asking why there is such a discrepancy. Moving forward, the definition per item number are the same as those given on the PSS A2. That's why we always start with, and that's again a suggestion for you to start from drafting the PSS A2. Once you completed the PSS A2, the rest is, I would say, easy to be filled in. So, and especially because you have the same item numbers given in the PSS A2. Some of them can be condensed for reducing the number of information, but most of them are the same. I don't have, no, I have it, so maybe I can give you, instead of reading the points, I can give you an explanation on the PSS A8 directly with this empty template, which, by the way, was taken from ESA Star legislation via the link I already put in one of the first slides. So that's the A8, so containing the company manpower and price summary per work package. So in the very first section, you will find a request to include the proposal, tender number, the company name, the contractor phase, if any, and the WBS level. In the second section, which is the core of the PSS A8 as well, you will find on the left side the labor hours per category. So per what category? Category 1, scientist, leader, or administrative assistant, so whatever labor category. Please make sure you list them all here. But again, when you list the labor categories here, please make sure this information corresponds to the one provided in the key personnel table again, because we find a lot of discrepancies, not only with regard to the number of hours, but also with regard to the labor categories claimed in the key personnel table and on the other side in the PSS A8. So as you can see, per each category, you will find on the right side a X number of columns. Of course, here I summarize them because it's an example and a template, but of course you will find and you will be required to include as many columns as the work package you claimed and identified in the proposals. So per each category, you will be required to fill in all the hours spent by each personnel under all the work packages. And of course, then at the end, at the bottom, you will see a total labor hours per work package and at the total WBS level. So please make sure that also these numbers are consistent among the others. Moving ahead, we are still in the financial provisions, but we are now approaching, so we ended the explanation of the PSS forms. Now let me move to the milestone payment plan, or the MSMPP. You might see, especially in the proposal template, these terms. Okay, I need to speed up a little bit. So here, please, I presented a very draft milestone description with the scheduled dates and the payments from ESA to per contractor and the country ISO code available via the link you will find in the slides. Please make sure, and because with the milestone payment plan, we have less provisions and limitations and thresholds. The only one that must be met by the companies is the 10% cash minimum of the final payment. Again, if milestone payment plan is presented being not compliant with these provisions, we may downgrade the proposal accordingly. With regard to the milestone payment plan, one of the most common question is how to fill in the advance payment section. So in general, generally speaking, whenever an SME, as defined by the European Commission, and here you can find a link containing the specific definition, is involved as prime or subcontractor into a consortium, it shall be entitled to a 35% of advance payment of its part of the contract price, irrespective of any cash disbursement needs. So automatically for all SMEs, a 35% of advance payment shall be granted by ESA. In the case the advance payment also applies to the subcontractors, the prime shall clarify the distribution of the ESA advance payment between the prime and the subcontractors, or among the prime and the subcontractors if it's more than one having the eligibility for an advance payment. Another important thing is the offset, the so-called offset of the advance payment. The advance payment, of course, is a debt of the bidder with ESA, because we are anticipating the payment of a certain milestone to give you cash and liquidity at the beginning of the activity. That's why we ask you to clarify against which milestone the advance payment must be offset. There are no so many limitations on this regard, but we need to make sure, and bidders need to make sure that the offset of the advance payment shall not affect the final settlement minimum amount, as I already said, the 10% cash of the contract price. Also with regard to the milestone payment plan, usually in the proposal template, but also if the proposal template is not attached because the procurement action is the standard one, you will find a milestone description already in the ESA provided statement of work. If, on the other hand, the ITT is issued under the Export Plus, the proposal template will contain a dedicated section for the milestone payment plan proposal already implementing the provision of the ESA statement of work. Positive note, the CCD for the activities under the climate space program is not requested anymore. The CCD is the so-called contract closure documentation in order to speed up also the closure of the contract. And the distribution by the prime, and this is again another information we need to have to correctly implement the contract, the distribution by the prime of all ESA payments between the prime and the prime contractor and the subcontractor is mandatory for the implementation of the project. Now, we finished the assessment of the TA package and a quick introduction on the procurement process in ESA. And this is a presentation of the ITT, the ongoing ITTs and upcoming actually from the ESA climate space. We are currently accepting proposal for the climate change in cities, ITT, and you can find the link to access to the ESA Star, deadline the 5th of March. There's another one ongoing, the biodiversity and climate studies, deadline closing date on the 13th of March. And there is another one, the climate change adaptation upcoming in the second quarter of 2025. Please make sure, and this is again, I know it's very annoying, but unfortunately we have been obliged to apply the submission deadlines threshold that you see here. We can now grant bidders with 4 weeks of bidding period plus 2 weeks maximum as from ITT publication as a bidding period. These are rules coming not from us, of course, but from the highest management of ESA, so there is nothing we can do. Once we grant 2 weeks extension, we cannot grant another one. To close quite very quickly, as from the ITT publications, you can always submit questions, clarification, and please do it. If you have doubts, I strongly suggest you to submit a request for clarification on ESA Star, but only via ESA Star. I always receive on a daily basis tons of email asking for specific questions and etc. clarification. I cannot reply. It's an open competition, so all bidders must have access to the same information. So I will not respond to any private emails. Only question concerning, of course, the understanding of ITT will be answered. We are not providing new solutions. And answers, as I said, will be published on ESA Star publication in an open competition. In other procurement types, but this is not the case for climate space, we may also have an internal discussion, but not in this occasion. I think I talked too much. Should be time for your questions. Sarah, do we have any? And of course, for all the questions that we will not be able to address today, we will give you a written response. So that's just for your information.
Thank you so much, Louisa. No, it's completely fine. So for those of you who may not be aware, I was putting in any of the links that Louisa was referring to in the chat. So please check out the chat if you would like any of the links that were discussed. I haven't received any questions yet, and since we are very close to the hour, I'm just going to add our emails into the chat. So if you do have a question on this specific webinar, on the process, then we are happy to answer that kind of question by email. But if you have any specific questions on the content or a particular question on an ongoing ITT that is out, then I would request that you do this as a clarification via ESA Star. We actually do have one question, and since we're 2 minutes left, we can take this. So Peter Miller from the UK and PML has suggested some ITTs request a PSS breakdown by years of project. Do you really need all PSS for each company and each year? So we'll take this question and then we'll close the webinar.
That's a very good question, actually. We usually do not request a detailed PSS breakdown by years unless it's a phased contract. It could be under the climate space that ESA requests a phased approach to the contract. If then that's the case, we need the bidders to provide a year set of PSS forms. But if it's not requested, and if from the cover letter, if it's a standard procurement, or from the proposal template, if it's an Expro Plus, you should be able to understand and to see if ESA is requiring a phase contract. You may also see from the draft contract attached to the ITT package. So if you don't see any mention to phases or year 1, year 2, or year 3, because it depends, of course, on the type of contract, you may submit a full duration set of PSS forms, so with no internal breakdown per year. And that's, for instance, that's a typical question that can be submitted via ESA Star clarification section, because it is very useful for all the bidders participating to an ITT.
And so since we're on the hour, I will close the webinar now. Any other questions, then please email us or put it in.
Okay, Sarah, just because I saw Peter replying to my response, he's asking, so if it is a phase contract, which forms are needed per year? The same PSS forms. In the title, you will clarify year 1, year 2, year 3, or as many as foreseen in the ITT package. So it's the same document. It's just in the title, so in the very first section, that you may clarify the applicable temporary breakdown. Okay. That was it.
Okay. Yeah, we ran out of time now. So if you would like to email us a question, we can give her a written response. But thank you very much for everyone who joined. Thank you to Louisa for sharing your expertise and insights. And I hope you all have a good rest of your days. Goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Have a good afternoon to everybody. Thank you, Sarah.
Bye all.
Bye.